Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. We're going to paint the Carolina Wren. This is number 2 in a challenge of, I think probably around 12. Might do a few more. Right now I have photos for like 20, so I have to weed it down just a bit. I want to do them and finish them up by, say, the first week in September or so. So we're just kind of spread them all out a couple of weeks. Might have to do 3 a week or so in a few times. But I hope you join me on this painting. Today we're going to do the Carolina Wren, and this is one. Here's a photo of it. I purchased this photo from Adobe Stock Photos, and then I put it out on an 11 by 14 board, and I painted it a light gray. I took black and white with just a little bit of the yellow oxide and base coated that. Then I sketched it out. You can also, those of you in my classes and stuff, you could use a clear plastic and put it on and take it off. But when I printed this off, I felt he was a little large, so I sketched him down about 90%. So he's not quite as big as what he is in the photo here. So he should fit in the palm of your hand. The real ones did all the time. A cute little story about this Carolina Wren. I've painted this Wren several times. As a matter of fact, it is the little Wren that you see on the tube of our paints here. The painting that I have is actually quite large. This is a very, very large painting with a bunch of Queen Elizabeth roses and stuff on it. But we had, when we developed the paint many years ago, we had a little Carolina Wren that nested in the door frame of the entrance door to our building, and she returned for almost at least 3 years, and raising at least 2 sets of young every year. And so she was a lot of fun, and that's when I painted her for the really kind of our logo for our business and stuff. So I love the Carolina Wren, and they're just the most funniest birds around the feeders and stuff out of our place out in Pennsylvania. But anyway, a lovely bird with a lot of detail, and I paint it both with details and without details. Now, here is one that I did a couple years ago in my classes, in my online class. So this one is painted with a lot of detail. This one uses the number 4 round, and does a lot of round detail up in here that like I showed you with the last video and stuff that we did here. The last YouTube video and stuff, I showed you that. Let me come in just a little closer here. You can see some of the nice detail and stuff on the Wren. So there's a lot of detail, and it's kind of fun. That little 4, combining a little 4 round and a flat can give you a lot of nice detail to your birds. And so I'll show you some of that. Now, so I consider this a detailed look to the bird, and sometimes I'll do it. It's a more realistic look, and then sometimes I do, like I went up into the gallery and got this one. I love this painting. The titmouse is the tufted titmouse is one of my favorite of all time birds. Now this one, this look, if you can see, is quite a bit different than the detail look. This one has a more what I call a painterly look to it. This one I paint with the number 4, basically a number 4 flat brush. That's my favorite one. So I do a lot of the stroking and stuff with the number 4. I only use a detail right around in her eye and stuff here. But anyway, we'll talk some more about those. We have a lot of different techniques, and I can't show them all in 12 that I do, but I want to introduce you to quite a few of them. So I have her sketched out here, and this is, put this photo up so it stays up there for me to reference here. That'll be good. So I sketched it out. Basically, she's a pear shape. I do one circle here, and then I do another circle that overlaps almost halfway to it, and then I sketch her head a little bit more oval, and then her body, and then you just stick up a tail. They have the funniest little tail. It's like someone cut it off, and it just sticks up all the time. I just absolutely love them. I'm going to put some flowers down here. Not really sure yet what kind of flowers and stuff I'm going to paint. What I'm going to put up there. So I'm going to be using, I might even use a 2 flat today, and a 4 flat, and my 3/4 inch brush, of course, is just for my backgrounds, and then I'll decide between my 8 and 10 for painting some flowers. And I'm thinking blossom type flowers, almost like what I did on that one. Not real sure. Not really sure. I'll let you know. I know I talk to you all the time about make a plan, do all that kind of stuff. I'm having some fun today, and we're gonna let this paint. I want to carry that yellow. This one, as opposed to the one that I painted there, that's turned a little bit more. This one's going to have a lot more of her yellow body that's going to show up, and so I'm going to probably want to carry that yellow down into some flowers, either in yellow roses or into like white blossoms with big yellow centers or something like that. That's what I look for within the color, and I'll let that control that. When I teach the class, there's some very specific rules about detailing, matching the detail of a bird to the details and stuff of your flowers. So you have to, there's a lot of things that, you try to keep in mind. But anyway, let's get into the painting here, okay? The palette that I'm going to use here, slightly off camera, just a little bit there, is I'm going to have my Hansa yellow, my Darya light yellow, my yellow oxide. These are, my traditional palette that I have out here so far. The Naphtha red light, burnt sienna, huge colors that we'll use inside of her today. Pine green, sapphire blue. Now, sapphire blue is a little different than most of the time. You either see me with an ultramarine blue or a phthalo blue that I like to have out. But I use sapphire, and I used sapphire the other day in one of the rose correction videos, and then my very good friend and longtime painting partner from Japan, Tame Inoue from Hiroshima, Japan, she wrote me an email and said, I just told my students today that you don't use sapphire, and today you released a YouTube video and you used sapphire for the first time in like 3 years, because I don't put it out that often. So I'm doing this for Tame more than anything else. But sapphire is a beautiful color. One of the, just to give you a little bit of color theory here, and just a little bit, because I love color theory. I mean, I've taught it for, 35 years. I love color theory. See, when you look at the numbers, here's my sapphire blue. When you look at the numbers down below here, 15:3, PB29, PBK7, PW6. Those are what we call the chemical index name. That is what tells you what is inside a particular color. So if you look at 15:3, 15:3 is phthalo blue. See, 15:3. And you look at PB29, PB29 is ultramarine blue. Okay, so that's ultramarine blue. PW6, of course, is titanium white, and PBK7, reach over and grab that, is carbon black. So basically, sapphire, if you don't have sapphire, it is a mixture of phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, black, and white. And that's how professional artists talk to each other. We don't use names. Names mean absolutely nothing. When I say Naphtha red light or something like that, it means nothing. Okay? Because, our Naphtha red light is different, a completely different pigment from, say, Golden's Naphtha red light. It's completely different. I go by, because I'm a chemist, I go through what's called the Nomenclature of Color. I use a little closer to the nomenclature. I like to do that. But the numbers are the same. So when, they're using something, if I'm using a PR9 and they're using a PR112, we may have the same number, Naphtha red light, but we're using two different pigments. So you can't go by the name, you go by the number. That's what you do. And all good paints will put numbers on them, okay? That's how you tell what the colors are. So anyway, long story short, so I just love teaching color theory. Long story short, that's sapphire. And then let's go back just a little bit wider here so that you guys can see the rest of my palette here. So the sapphire, and then I have the red violet, quinacridone violet, and white. And off we go. Okay, enough of the talk. Let's go. I'm going to also use today some extender medium, because I'm going to do a heavy pigment load on it and do some what we call movement strokes. Another thing, that's detail and movement. I'm going to start out by, moving that background color. I like to do that. I'm going to use sapphire this time and a lot of white. And yes, and so Tommy said immediately, she said, okay, I'll just make my sapphire, because there isn't very much left in Japan right now. So she says, we'll just make it. And you can make it. If you have phthalo blue, black, and white, you can make sapphire. Easy. Anybody can. Okay. So I'm going to push some of this, and I like to leave a little streaks. I did that in that other one I did in one of my classes and stuff. And every time I do something like this and put a little blue, my students and my my collectors and stuff just love it. They just love it, and so do I. I do. Now, so I'll put that in, and of course I've wiped out most of her there, so I'll just tap and bring her back. And like we did with the other one, I'll bring back. And I just need enough to see some of the stuff. But I like to glaze through. Sometimes I'll put other colors through. It's really pretty. Like, she is going to be so warm, right, when we do that. So start thinking some other things. Like, what's going to make her pop forward? Maybe a little bit of the cool color. So let's put even a nice little violet color, just kind of pushing right through some of this, right into this area here. And especially, the violets and yellows, the complements and stuff, and a little bit of that violet will contrast her just a touch more. So, sometimes when I'm picking up and thinking about streaking colors or what colors I might do and streak through and stuff, I start to think about contrast, what's going to contrast against, against her or, against the flowers or whatever. And since, she's going to be very warm and very much into the yellows, and you see those colors will contrast against these cools really nice. And I think about that kind of stuff. All right, let's go. I'm going to start out with my number 4. Before I go into some detail painting here, what I'm going to do is start to build in some undertone, just kind of like what we did with the last one. I'm going to take some yellow oxide, a little burnt sienna, maybe a touch of red, and put in in some areas she has this real reddish kind of yellow, reddish, orange kind of an undertone. I'm just going to push this around. I'm going to start thin to thick paint and push this around this time. A little different. Push this around because she's going to have a lot of this modeling kind of interest of her color. So I don't want to set up too much of a pattern into this breast area and stuff because I just want to move a bunch of color around. And I'll push, and they're pretty heavy, and I got some heavy pencil lines there that we will be covering up here. Okay, so I'll push that color in. I'm going to take, and I always model it slightly different, a little different type of tone. We'll push a bit of that back up into her wing, into her mantle area, which is the top area of her wing there. Just a bit around the part of the eye here. Now, last time we started out more on the head and stuff. This time I'm going to put in some tone, some nice tone. Now, as I go back up here, I'll thin it just a bit. I'm just going to put an indication of it, thin it. I'm thinking about some of those back areas disappearing a bit. So I'll thin it just a bit and pull that through for that tail. Let's go a little more burnt sienna. Now, if the burnt sienna starts to get like around her head here, you're going to see, and look at the difference of colors in her head to her wing. Here you see a brighter orange, almost burnt sienna. Here it's more tone. To get that more tone, you got to hit it with a complement. First, let's go in and just tap in a bit of that tone into her wing here. And again, this is your first look. We're going to put the tones in because she's going to be painted many times, a lot more times than we did the last one. And so we'll put some of that tone in. Now there's a bit of it slightly warmer, brighter back here at the base of the tail there. And then the long streak here down through here is more tone. See it? Here's brighter, here it is brighter, and here it is more tone. So here's the more toned version of it. To make the more toned version of it, you grab any type of complement. And when I'm working with burnt sienna, I'm going to add a little extender to this. I like the pine green. And if I want it to go just a touch lighter, it doesn't really need to go a touch lighter, but you can see immediately here. Here it is without that, and let me just put a little drop of that here. And here it is with it, with pine green and without pine green. So you see a difference in it, that green tones it down. And the green doesn't tone it down as fast as a blue. You could also gray it down with the blue, which works excuse me, really well. it'll be a different type of gray. See, it's a little bit different type of gray than it is here, because that blue's going to cool it at the same time. And I don't want that. You can see that that tone that's right there is pretty much that tone. Do you see that right there? It's not that one. So it's not a cooler tone, it is a warmer tone. And we're here in the lights where we want to preserve that warmer tone. So using the green has a blue in it, but the green also has a yellow in it, helping it keep warm. So anytime that I want to tone burnt sienna and I want to keep it warm, I always go to my green rather than going to its complement blue, which cools it too much. So there's a nice little diversion for you. Let's come right up here by our head and let's put in some of that cooler tone, or not cooler, well, it is a little bit cooler, but it's not as heavy cool as if I had used a burnt sienna, in a sapphire blue or any kind of blue, burnt umber or cerulean or even a phthalo. Okay, so I'm going to put some of this in, and I'm going to just grab a bit of warmer here too, and I like to kind of streak that and break those edges just a bit. I like to have some movement into the tone here like this when I'm doing, because it gives good movement to her feathers, okay, to her whole body here. So let's grab some on the top of her head, and I want to lose that back edge. Lose that back edge there. Now I hit up into this blue. Don't worry, we're going to restate those blues and stuff there. A little darker. So if I have my burnt sienna and my green and I want to go up above her head here, which is some nice darker color right up in there, and we can use it for the eye, I'm going to head over towards my violets here. So I'm going to step off to the side, add that green and violet, and that makes a real nice darker color here. And I can push that right up into this area here, a little darker here, right in there like that, and drop that in there. That works really, really well there. And if we wanted to get this even cooler, which it all depends on the contrast. So this is dark enough like to paint the eye and do anything that we want to do. But if you wanted to go even more contrast, I'm going to put out just a touch of this phthalo blue and use it in some super dark areas, which is easier for you. It'll be easier for you here. So to get this, and watch what happens. The tiniest little bit of the blue, this is really going to go dark, really dark and cool. See the difference here? Okay. And basically, because it's not like the sapphire, it doesn't have white in it, but that goes real dark. And so that's a beautiful run of tone right through there. And so having just a bit of that blue out, that darker blue, is kind of nice. She's going to have some of this right out here by the tips of the secondary flight feathers here on her wing, and then all the way down to the tips of her primaries. I just use the chisel of this brush and just drag a bit, and because I put just a touch of extender in there, it's kind of sticky. But I want to grab just those edges, those dark edges. She'll have some color banding and stuff like that in there, but we'll do some of that later. We'll do some negative painting, put some in. We'll just put a bit of it in right now. And let's thin out some of this grayer tone, a little more green here. Thin it out, a little extender. So I'm not really using extender to keep it too wet. I like the sliding of it, but I'm going to be using it for what I call color movement, color modeling here in just a bit, and I'll show you that. We put a lot of paint on and push for movement. So now you can see that's just a bit grayer. But see, when I would look at something like that, even though it's a back area and I want it to fade away, I would add a little bit more interest there. Maybe just a little bit more of a burnt sienna tone moving through there. Now see how much more interest that tail has. So when I look through tones, I got a nice gray tone. I have a lighter yellow burnt sienna tone, and then I have a little burnt sienna in there as well. That's the kind of way I like looking through that. Let's grab some of this yellow, maybe a bit more burnt sienna, warmer. Let's push some of that just And see, I just want to I want to kind of grab this area and this area here. So just the chisel point of this brush and just push that around a bit like that to create that modeling. I want that modeling there. And I'll push some around here, and I'll grab some yellow. This is where I add a bit of the extender. I'll grab some of this yellow. I'm going to push that in there too and just push that around a bit and create this model in the movement. Let's try, Dave, to stay in the bird. Here we go. So, but I'll use thicker paint when I start to do this and push that around like that so I get modeled the movement. But I'm very aware of the calligraphy. You know, like I used that word a lot in the first one. You know, I follow the contour calligraphy of the bird coming down on her breast area and stuff like that. But this kind of this modeling that's all through there, the modeling is going to help you so much with interest to your little wren here. Calligraphy wise, let's pull some of this up this way, and then let's also grab a bit of that extender and that yellow oxide and pull some yellow right up through there and just push those like that. Now see, you get that modeling right in there like that. That gives a lot of interest. So when you use a thicker paint, so I'm using I'm applying thicker paint, and I'll apply thicker paint here like this of the yellow. Now, you can use your brush, but I like to use my finger, and I'll do just maybe 1 or 2 times, and that is enough to create that modeling. If you do this, you'll make one color, and you'll have just one color, and you lose interest to your bird. And then you'll be back setting the burnt siennas in again, and setting the thick paint of the yellow oxide, and pushing it just a couple times to get that modeled interest. Does that make sense? And that's what I want to do. So you start to look at that. See the modeled interest of that little feather. That's what I'm looking at there. We have modeled interest that's going to come back this way. Now, I'm going to do these areas. When I do a bird that has a tremendous amount of detail, I'll repeat these several times, these areas several times here. So we're going to repeat it like this, push that in. Before I'd even go up to her face, I'm going to set some of these areas in. I'm going to use some Hansa yellow and some yellow oxide this time. I'm going to set some lighter, brighter color. Just tap that right in there like that. A little bit of extender and just push a bit. And this gets more of a painterly look to the bird, where I set a lot of the modeled interest of the feathers, not with the small little brush, but with a bigger brush, leaving it more of a painter's calligraphy, a brush calligraphy, as opposed to a detail brush. Okay, so I'll set that in. Let's go a little bit of light and some of that yellow here. We'll push some of this in like this, see? In around like that. Now see, I want to capture this look, see? I want to capture that look. So I can do it with my brush, just laying it flat, and the fusion brush is perfect for this. Wipe it every once in a while and just push a little bit. But push in the direction that you want to go. And what you're doing is pushing those tones together. Sometimes the dark will come out, sometimes the light will come out. You don't have a tremendous amount of control, but you can get some nice looks. See, you get some nice modeled looks, and you can see you're going to have to build it maybe a couple of times. But I find different ways. I can put a light, and I go, ooh, that's a little light. I don't worry about it. I'll just put a little dark in my brush this time and push a couple times here, and push, and get that modeling. Sometimes I'll take my finger and just run right through the whole thing to soften the whole bit, to get a bit more movement into the whole bit there too, if I figure I'm getting a little bit too much. But I'll end up repeating stuff like that several times. You're trying to recreate or create the movement and stuff as an artist that you see within the the little wren here. And sometimes I do it with a lot of brush work. Sometimes I do it with a small brush. Sometimes I do it with the large brush. I like to build paint and build and build and build paint and colors. And so I'll put on light. Then I'll come back here, grab some thicker, darker color, stroke back through, take some of that out, creating that movement. I'd like some of that grayed tone to hit in there every once in a while. You see that little different grayed tone that's kind of pretty in there. You really see that little grayed tone over here onto the edge. Let's put some of that, maybe a bit more burnt sienna too, here in on the edge of her. Push that in, push and pull a bit. Okay, I want some more orange, a bit more orange right in there to grab that coloring in her. A bit more red right in there. So see, I'm emulating that area there. I'm just grabbing some of that. Now you're not gonna get it close, but I enjoy trying to figure out how do I work my brush, and we're working the little 4 here. How do I work my little brush, my little 4, to grab some of those looks? And here it's like, stick and jab little bits there, like that. And grab some of that movement stuff. A little bit of light in the yellow here. Grab some of that. And we'll probably, some of this we're going to want to start to pull down to grab that downward stroke of her body here. There, like that. A little bit more, reset some of the other tones. Now I'll probably come through that again. That's good enough to set the initial part of the tone. That's good enough for right now. Let's go back up here. We see yellows and siennas here. Let's grab a little daruluides and some yellows here. Let's pull down into this area. Reset some yellows in there. A bit of soft oranges in there. Right in there like that. We'll have some detail of some lighter yellow with some, we'll probably go to our 4 for that, but we'll set some light, just a few light movements, and that's what I like. See that right there? Zoom. That's what I really like. When I start getting my paint thick enough that kind of happens. I like that. If I want the light to come down, I pull that way. If I want the shadow to go back, I push up, because there's a shadow sitting right down lower. So I know underneath that's a shadow. So I know if I just stroked it and got it too light, I push up like that, taking the light off. If I want it to be lighter, I pull down, bringing the light down. That's how I do it. I'm watching my painting. Let's put a bit of that right in there. Boy, I had that perfect and just took it off with my finger. Soft, Dave. All right. So we got a bit of that color in there. We have a lot more to do in there, but that gets that area really nice so far. Let's go in and work on her eye, and just like that, I'm going to go with my number 4 round. And just like the first bird we did, I do like to put that nice warm burnt sienna. I didn't for years, and now in the last couple of years I've been doing this a lot. I've been adding a warmth to the eyes of the sienna, and it really works well with the Wrens here. Let's go with our blue, maybe a little burnt sienna and a little bit of our red violet here. I could even add a touch of green to help tone all of that. Let's get a nice cold dark to the front part of the eye here. And I'll do it with small taps, trying not to take out all of the burnt sienna. I know that's kind of hard to see, but yeah, instead of right there, just like that. Kind of hard to see, but I put it. You can see just a little bit of burnt sienna in there. But Vicky wrote me that her husband got her a 42-inch, I think it was 42-inch, the TV that you now watch these videos on. And so you probably see the burnt sienna in every little hair of my brush stroke. You blow it up that big. Anyway, so I have that, and now I'm going to come in. In this particular area of the bird, I'm going to look for the undertone before the white. The second you start adding white, you start painting out a lot of stuff. So I'm going to look for the undertone, which is this kind of a gray tone, which is beautiful with the burnt sienna and a little bit of blue. And you can use either blue here. And it makes that lovely grayed undertone here. just a bit more of the blue. There we go. That's just a nice, see, it's a nice grayed undertone there for that color. And let's just do some small, I hit some of that violet with that, and it's not too bad. It's not exactly the tone, but not too bad. Let's put some of that, push a bit of that around, and maybe just a bit more burnt sienna in that blue, maybe a touch of phthalo. I always like to change the tones so they're never always the same. That's where you get the most interest. And see, by flattening that brush out and just pulling up a bit, you get that nice kind of feathery look to it. But this is the first undertone. Let's go a little darker. Burnt sienna blue, just a bit darker here. And add some darker movement. Don't take all the others out. Just quickly, just move your brush. Keep your brush moving. Don't let it hover too long in one area. You'll paint everything out. Just keep it moving. You can always come back and work an area again. Keep your brush moving. There'll be just a touch of that. Let's let some of that go. And this would make a nice tone, and some of it will paint out, but the top part of his, and his beak, big long beak that curves, and we'll put just a touch darker right up here, right up there. But he's got this big long curving beak, so we'll push. Boy, I got a little hair at the tip of my brush. Don't breathe. It's very dangerous. There we go. Put that detail in there. Let's lighten that up just a bit. Now see, when you work a thing like that, you see this lower tone here, and then you see the light. I would attack the lower tone and then put the highlight stroke on. You know, and of course every little bird is a little different what I see, but I'm going to lighten this up a bit to put a lighter lower tone that's still very grayed on. So we'll drop that one on there first. Now we'll grab a little white, drop this off to the side, try to just touch a little bit of your brush here, and we'll drop in just a touch of the highlight. Now, many times there's a light little tip. You see that light little bent tip, and they have that light little bent tip. I mean, it is a super detailed, long, dangerous little beak that these birds have. I just absolutely love them here. So I'm going to grab that. Now, I will come back, like with the gray tone, just a little bit different. Sometimes I'll come back a couple times, paint through that, just drag that, and start to create. See, I find the beaks on the birds some of the most interesting areas. And so I usually paint them with a lot of paint, mottled brush, which means it carries multiple colors, and I'll go back and forth a couple of times, different kinds of strokes, and so I can create interest within that beak. A little bit of lighter interest right here. Boom, put a little bit there. Up there by his nose, his nasal port. And we'll grab a bit of the light right up there like that. So it just adds you try to catch the good feeling of that particular beak there. A bit more, if I wanted to be precise, more realism and stuff, and it all depends, time and everything, but remember what I said, yours is a painting, and when it's all said and done, you don't have, the viewer won't have the photo to reference it to, so don't spend too much time trying to copy. But sometimes if you see some, extra little movements that would help, let's just grab this medium tone right in there, kind of join those up a bit. That'll get you a little closer to, what that beak looks like on him there. But he has a stronger streak of white kind of pulling down towards his body here, just a touch more. And I'm going to grab that because that's just good movement here. Let's grab a little gray, pull down through that. I like the mottled tones and stuff, so that sets up a pretty nice little beak for him there. Okay, now let's take some of this light and this gray that we have here. So it'll be lighter, a lighter gray tone. And let's come just slightly above the eye. Make sure that, I mean, his white band here starts about the center line of his beak, and it just eclipses the top of the eye. Do not cut across the eye there, because what you'll do, if you cut across the, see there's a bit, just the tiniest bit of brown, but if you cut across the top of the eye like that, he starts to get angry, right? And you don't want an angry little bird. So don't eclipse the eye. Make sure you don't do that. And then we come back here, slow, short, little feathery strokes with the 4. This is the feathery stroke. Just lifting that off a bit like that. And I'll let some of this come off. A little grayer here, a little shorter, just like that. Okay. And then I'll build a touch more white here to it. Let's just, this is really wet right there. I keep adding that, so I'm going to back that out just a bit. I don't mind the yellow, I just don't want the cool violet. Matter of fact, a little yellow would be kind of nice. We'll put a bit of light. Yeah, see, that's, I can see, I know the camera has a hard time picking that up, but I pick up just a bit of that yellow. That's really nice. Let's do a lighter, smaller stroke through there, and you can model or push, or what I call incorporate those colors together by using either a wet brush. Sometimes I'll use a little 2 or so and incorporate it, or your finger like I like to do. Here, let's just grab a bit of that feathery stroke there. That works. Okay, let's and again, I always go back, reset darks and stuff too, because the actual feathering look that I really like to use, that I use more than anything else, there's a little burnt sienna and a tiny bit of blue, is through the darks, not through the lights. I like to feather with the darks because you see I can control really easy the darks. I feel a little bit more than the lights, and that's the same with roses and everything. So I'm just going to add a bit of that, looking for some of that nice dark contrast up in the front of his little face, or her little face there. And before I get going too long, there's the tiniest, it's so hard to see, but so I like to accentuate it a little bit more than what is actually on the real bird, the eye ring. And so I'll take just the tip of my little 4 here and draw on the eye ring. And the little wren, the eye is actually a bit more oval than it is round, so just make sure you don't have it too round and you'll be okay. And then I'll push and always make it a bit bigger, and I'll push a little dark into it. Sometimes I'll push the little shadow right up underneath the eye, which raises the eye off the body here. Like that, I'll push that in, and that gives me a good shadow area. Matter of fact, let's just walk that up the edge of the beak here for a second. And that gives me a good shadow area that I'll now pick up some of my mottled white and gray here. And just like we did with the little bluebird, I'll do the small tapping little downy edge feathers that you have out here. And as I come out of this beak area here, so I use more of the tip of the brush, and this is very important. I use more of the tip of the brush in and around the edge of the beak, just kind of tapping and moving that around there like that. That puts in the soft little feathers. And then as I get away from the beak, as I leave the beak, I start slowly setting more of the brush down, making them a little bit longer, because that's what happens. Okay, so there's this detailed little feathers, maybe a little bit more white here. Detailed little feathers, taps of them, up and around in there. And then as you come out away from the beak, I'm going to add just a touch of extender. This is getting a bit sticky here. But I like the paint thick. I don't like it runny. I like it thick. I'm going to start out with some small ones pulling down here, and then slowly get a bit longer. And notice the direction. I mean, these little birds get all kind of wild hairs going out everywhere, these little feathers. So some of those little feathers will come out pretty wild there. Okay. And they'll come out, and some of them will bend back this way. Okay. And then I'm going to take a bit of yellow oxide and stroke back through some of those to soften and incorporate those just a touch. Put some of that yellow in, and I'll go back and forth, maybe a little bit of my tan color here. I'll go back and forth a couple of times, depending on how much time you're going to spend here. You don't want to lose all your darks, because if you lose all your darks, you lose all of the interest of the hair. What makes the little ones show up is your darks. So, and I'm starting to lose it just a bit, so I'm going to restate some of my grays in there. Mix up some grays here. I don't try to make up exactly the same color again. I like it a little different. I'll tap a little bit of dark. See how quickly that dark takes away some of that light and adds some of that movement? That's what I like. And I'll end up repeating sometimes these areas like that a few times, back and forth with the light and the dark. So evaluate your painting here. If you lose any of your darks, you got to get those darks in there. You got to preserve them, because that's what makes the lights and the little hairs of her body here show up. Now we have a few that'll pull up like this. A few more yellow ones that come down like that. So we start to pick up some yellows in there. See some yellows in there. Right? Some lighter yellows. Let's go Hansa into this. And some yellow oxide and model those all together. Lighter little yellows coming here. Pulling down. Get that a little bit more wet. If it gets too dry, I like it dry and thick, but if it gets too much, no paint comes out. So a little bit of moisture is needed to travel that paint. But some little hairy looks here. A bit of that through there, like that. And I'm going to pinch white my brush, pick up some more white, go more white, almost pure white here, thicker white, and restate right along that beak. See, I was not using pure white. Now you can see the pure white that comes on and picks up that beak line. Now, if yours doesn't show up, just put some more gray back through your beak. But I don't jump to pure white very fast. I build it. Let's take a bit of that pure white and add some nice lights. So a lot of times I paint up and around, so I like that. See that little feathery stroke, little bit of that there? Now she has some, but I paint up and around value 9 a lot. Very seldom go to pure white, thick white. Now I add that in there and you can see it really causes her to, and which means I could use a touch, not too much, because if you start putting it everywhere, these will start losing their power. But a few little touches here and there will just add that extra little spark of life right around some of those other little feathers in there. Don't get wild and crazy with it. Just a bit of it. Slightly lighter in there. Just like that. Let's go in and go with the gray, probably down to about a value 8 or 9. We'll put that catch light on the back of her eye there. Just like that. Now that's a bit big. You know me, I paint too big. I like to paint too big. I then go back, restate a dark, any kind of dark, and push it out right to the size that I want to have on that catch light. Okay? All right. Let's go back in and grab some yellows, burnt siennas. Add a few strokes of that right up in here. We can make a few of them hairy here so that they go off the edge. Maybe a bit of light right in through there. Just like that. There's just a touch of those lighter brown kind of colors here pulling off of her right up there. Okay. And you know, back into here, yellow, orange, some burnt sienna, some white here, just some nice soft yellow oranges. Get that a bit brighter orange right up in here. Just kind of pull through, and so I just override some of those bands I put in there earlier. Tap through there like that. Maybe a touch of light off to the side so you can see it's a value or so lighter here. Add a few smaller little marks. Sometimes I will make these a little more accentuated than what she's actually showing. There is a nice divide here. Burnt sienna, burnt sienna and a little bit of green I would do here. We're going to restate some of this dark because that is so important right here for the interest of that wing in her body. So restate some of this dark area right in there. Could have, I think I went a bit gray. We'll go just a bit more burnt sienna. Here, push that around. Get that nice heavy color and push it around. Okay. And some nice light yellow. Let's cross back up over. I like little hair strokes. That the tip of this 4 just does it so perfectly. Every time. Makes it look like I know what I'm doing here. I just love it. But I push it and I push it slightly flat, and then I just lightly whisper touch like a little butterfly, just touching the edge, and it makes those little marks that look just like the feathers. Perfectly. A little lighter. Just a few those little marks. I like the yellow. I'm going to lighten it and push it up just a bit more. But you know me, I told you last, I like to put those light little feathers crossing the body over the main part of the front shoulder, the mantle of the birds. That has become over the years my signature. They can always tell my birds because I always set the wing into the body with a few of those little strokes right around like that. You can barely see them there, but you'll probably see when I'm painting here like this on her, I go back and forth between the lights and darks. I don't sit there and go, okay, I've put lights on, so now I can't go back to darks. No, I go back. I paint pure alla prima, which means I paint whatever the bird needs. And I'll let a dark sit right on top of a light with no problem whatsoever. That darulite in this burnt sienna is perfect little tone right in there. Right in there. Push that around a bit. Here. That'll be a nice tone right here at the end of her tail or body there. Some of that right in here. Let's just restate that. Boom, right down in there. But you can see all that lovely modeling color now. And you see that darker tone I put in there. It's underneath there. You can, now it becomes, how much, I did a lot of detailing around here. So I'd carry some of that down. I would carry some of that down here. Maybe even a little more than what you see on the original bird. Just to help carry the technique. So I might feather, so I take some of this color and I flatten the brush so I get those little hairs out there, and I might feather down a bit here. Add a few little feathery strokes out here just to fluff up the bird. A little bit more than what you would see maybe on your reference photo. And because when this is done, I'm hiding this reference photo. No one's seeing it, and they're going to think my bird's lovely. I'm going to put a bit here for her leg, to bring her leg out. Here, maybe a bit of this darker right there in that part right there. I like that. Little bands of color, burnt sienna, a little bit of blue, a little bit of green, just to tone that down darker. Sometimes I put them in more. The Wren has these bands of color, and they show up quite well. Sometimes I put them in with the edge of a flat, or I'll just tap them through like this. But she does need these little bands. That's one of the descriptive things of the little Wren. So we need to have some of those little bands here on. But this is the back of her tail, so I don't want to get too wrapped up in a bunch of detail on those bands, because that's not needed. She's got a beautiful face, and I'm just going to leave it at that face here. I'm going to put a bit of that band color. You know me, I like, see, you can barely see it, but boy, that little warmer color up against that, a little more burnt sienna. Just a hint of it there. It's wonderful. Maybe just a hint of that dark here. Just a point. This is why I love this 4. Nice casual point there. Pull off that part of the beak. And I do like, there's a little feather that pops out there like that. I'm going to go more pure white here and pull out a feather or two out this way. That gives a lot of character right up there around her face, and I like that. And I might point up my brush a little more white and just tap a bit more of that light. These are just the little workings that I see of what I'd like to do, those little down feathers all up there around the front of her face. I like that. Now comes to point of how much more yellow light are you going to put like into her front here? Are you going to add those extra little light ones that are down? See how I flatten that 4 out, and it makes a nice, I pull and set it down, lift it off. Pull, set down, lift off. And you get these little fractured edges. This 4 is the very best brush I've ever painted with, I think. I do more things with it, from rose mauling to whatever. It just gives such great looks because it's that soft hair. It's an amazing little brush. Here, we'll just back paint some of that around so I get some of that other body look there. You can back paint with some of the darks, see, and that just pops off some more colors right in there like that. You know, and would you go in and add the little light spots and stuff? You know, she does have them. I'll probably gray that just a bit. You know, like onto the wing, you know, the little light spots that go through. You should maybe consider putting them on. They do show up on the little Wrens quite a bit. They do have them. They have kind of a little light band. Matter of fact, on this one you'll see. In this one, I used a completely different technique for painting the feathers and stuff in here. Here's a negative painting feather technique that I use. I use all different kinds of things. I read what it is into the painting, and then I reach back into all the techniques that I use, and I grab out the ones that I think that might represent the best for that little bird today, or what I'm showing on that little bird today. So just little bits here, a little bit more light through, and then I think I'm going to call her. We'll give her some feet here, some burnt sienna and the yellow and the light here. Makes a real light kind of colored here foot. Sometimes I use just burnt sienna. You know, it all depends. Sometimes I'll hit burnt sienna, model that through there as well. A lot of times, boy, especially on these little Wrens, they have the biggest feet. I think of all the birds, they have these, boy, they can grip onto anything. And they do. They grab all kinds of sides and different things. And I usually paint them a little bit smaller. To me, you know, I always joke with it. They look like giant pterodactyls, their feet and stuff that they have. They could grab onto anything. Let's put a little shadow back onto that one. Pull down a bit just to fuzz up the edges here. And if you don't like the feet, which I usually don't, I cover them all up with flowers. So, you know, there's ways to cover it up where you don't have to paint the feet. There's some artists that do just amazing feet, and I just like, wow, those are really great, but I don't like them. So, you know, I usually don't like the feet, so I usually paint them away, you know, get rid of them a bit. I notice I thinned her body here just a bit, so I'm going to use a little burnt sienna. Come down this outside. This will help me get rid of that pencil line, sketch line there too. Just like that. That actually gives a little more roundness to her as well. And maybe back to my 4. I didn't use my 2 like I was going to, but the 2 works really well. And, you know, try it as well. The little 2 makes beautiful feathers, the little 2 flat. Maybe we'll definitely be doing more birds, so we'll maybe do one that has more of the 2 in there as well. So when we'll just model just a bit of this so we get some different, see, I like to get some different feather line movements there for her body. Now, she's a little bit lighter right down through there. Yeah, do you do it or not? That's up to you. That's maybe just a bit of that. I think that's enough for her. I was thinking maybe I need to lighten up that line coming down her face. If I do anything, I'd probably bring out this line in her face a touch more. And this is just all individual artistic stuff, okay? So it's kind of like, yeah, you know, how much do you do? This is, every artist will be a little different. Some of you may want to bring it out, some of you may not. You know, don't, these are the kinds of things that separate artists and make all of their different looks. So I like that. So there we go. So she has a lot of nice interest. And I think I love that warm cool that's happening there in that particular, you know, part of her there. Okay, so, and that took a while. So, you know, when you do details like that, that takes a while. So, you know, usually I plan on 30, 40, sometimes 50 minutes for, you know, painting the detail onto a bird. And then, so then I try to paint the flowers in 15, you know, minutes or so. I try to paint them a little faster. Let's go here. I think I'll use my 8. Now I got a, boy, that 8 is, I left some paint in it. I'll have to take that out. You know, it's really stiff here, you know, from having paint in it. I don't know if some of you have seen that or not, but, you know, the good thing about having hand sanitizer, as long as it has at least 60% alcohol in it, a good hand sanitizer takes that right out of your brush. Yeah, it's a gray color I left in there. And a good hand sanitizer takes that right out. I don't know if some of you have seen that in other videos that I've done. But when that happens, you can see the color come out there. So I left that. And that brings the brush right back again. The Fusion brushes here are really nice. They clean out really easy. So who knows how long this has been in there. But, you know, don't ever throw away. When you're painting with these Fusions that I do like this, never, ever throw away a brush. Because these brushes will last you your entire painting career. And when they get really old, I have some great, great techniques we can use with the older brushes. But see, now it's back to a nice little brush to paint again. So don't ever get rid of them. But because alcohol is the pure solvent of the heritage acrylics, and this has enough alcohol in it. So this hand sanitizer, which I just use right in my hand, because this is what you put in it. It's hand sanitizer. It's basically 60-70%. This one's 70% alcohol, a little bit of aloe in it and stuff. But yeah, and you can see it's still a little bit more is coming out. If I do this, you know, 3-4 times, you'll get all of the color out of there. I've got enough out that I can paint with it. Then I give it a little bit of a rinse here, and we're ready to paint. So don't worry about you know, leaving painting. I'm terrible about cleaning my brushes after I paint with them, but I'll put some hand sanitizer in it, and off we go. All right, so we have our little bird here now. I'm going to step back just a bit, and let's take some burnt sienna, a little bit of green here, and push in a nice something that she's holding on to, maybe a couple other lines of movement through here. And just with some water, I'll start using, I can still use some extender and stuff, but I want to start using a little bit less because I want everything to dry now here. So let's put that in. Let's get some burnt sienna, some greens. Let's get some of those going right up into this area here. Boom. Some underlying green tones. I try to be very casual. Here, push that around here. So I start out first by just moving colors, moving lines, putting lines of movement, trying not to do anything too much that conflicts with her, but I want to get some of these colors going in through here. And that's starting to conflict a little bit with her, so I take a soft paper towel and I'll push through here, softening out some of the colors and tones, but this will give me a nice working area here. Colors back behind colors and stuff like that I can work in, okay? And you know, we want to take some of that yellow color that's down. We're going to have some yellows, blossoms, and even if they don't have yellow blossoms, we'll pick up a little bit of yellow here and there. So I like it, even when I do a detail bird, a lot of times I like really casual flowers. So I'm going to come over here. Some of the these nice blues. Let's get that sapphire down here. Those are beautiful blues. Sapphire warmed up with a bit of the yellow is a pretty color. Nice grayed color here. And we can, oh, there went her foot. We can, yay! So we can drop in some nice little blossoms here. And you know, don't always make a blossom. When you got a blossom, don't always make it all opened up. Close some of them down sometimes. You know, let's grab a little yellows and blues. I'm going to work those colors through here. Around like that. Make fun. Let your brush dance. Grab some textures for the fronts. You know, imagine some turning sideways, turning different ways. But the sapphire, some of this violet that's still wet because I added all that extender. See, everything up here is still very wet. And yeah, and it's 94 today here, so it's a hot day. Not as hot as it was earlier this week. Oof. And so here we'll grab that one in there. Nice little blossom, different look to it. Let's come back up over here, maybe turn one back this way and just push a bit. Maybe some back petals, some more blue here. Very soft. That's kind of fun. I try to paint them very fast and so that they, you know, so you really get a nice difference in looks, you know, a little bit more casual edges, a little bit more defined, really defined up around her face, and that really gives her the interest, makes her the focal point of the painting, which is what I want. And then I'll build the petals a little lighter right up here in the front. I won't go everywhere with that light. Let's add just a bit more yellow here. We'll just push a little bit of that right in there like that with that one. And do little ovals for little blossoms, not, you know, flowers that aren't opened up yet. Just kind of spin your brush as a little oval here. Push the edges so you get, push the edges like that so you get lost edges. That's very important. The lost edges are so important on the flowers that are further back in your design so that they you know, lose their interest and stuff. The painting, let's come out here. Let's do a few more little blossoms as they go out towards the tips of stuff. Fade away, add a little bit of greens into them, push it around, paint it with confidence, and just let what happens there. Because the main subject matter of your painting is done. And in all seriousness, if you say that to yourself, hey, you know, I've got myself 10 minutes, I want to get this part of the painting done. The main part of the painting is done. You paint very fast, you paint very loose, you're going to get a good look. Because she has a lot of detail to her face, that affords us a lot more detail to the flowers. But it's your call whether or not you do it. Right now I'm looking at everything that's happening here, and your eye really goes right into her face, which means I can build more on the flowers here if I want. But the more I build, the more it takes away from her face. So it is a balancing act that you now start to do, and it's yours. You start to do that. You start to pick out what is going to be important for you. Now, I've got a nice, what we call tangent line cut out right there. So I'm going to carry a little bit of this light color like it's a back flower back there. And that'll work better. Then I'm going to push that branch right back up and top there. So that'll work better. But push a little bit of that color back there. So don't forget that you should maybe have some ideas of back little flowers and stuff back there, back little colors, so that it's not just stopping right in that line. See, so you got some ideas of other things going on back there. You know, maybe some of this movement back here. And, you know, back through there. That's just kind of nice there, too. See? And, of course, we can do like we did with the first one and clean up with that violet around her. We might do that here. That's kind of pretty there. A little spin. Don't get too much light there, Dave. Let's add, she has a lot of burnt sienna. Let's add some burnt sienna right down into these flowers. That will be a nice common color. You could use some violet into some of these, you know, a little bit of violet color to carry some of the violets to the back. You know, so you can put violet color into your flowers. I think I'll do that in just a minute. I'm going to take some some yellow oxide on the corner of my brush and push the yellow oxide towards her on all centers that are towards her. That carries the yellows right from her breast area down. Makes it look like you know what you're doing. We'll carry a bit of that yellow here and there and around, just softly. Just a bit of it, right out like that. Let's grab a bit of Hansa for the center ones here and push some of that right up on the side that's closest to her. Just tap that out a bit and get out of there. Doesn't need that much. That's a bit spotty there, so I'll just drag it out a bit more. There, like that. That's kind of pretty. Now, so that works. And before I put the leaves on, I'm going to take some of this sapphire, because Tommy would like the sapphire in that part of the painting. Yeah, this is what makes it fun. You know, you get friends all around the world. And, you know, like when a lot of you have been commenting on the videos, I'm getting to know you. And, you know, I'll remember when you say something. I always remember my students and what their habits are and what their techniques are. And I like to joke and play a little bit about it because it's fun. Everything we do is fun. Yes, there are frustrating times, but it's a lot of fun too. And I like to have fun with everybody with the painting and have some nice jokes with it, especially with Tommy's. I just told all my students. Yep, that's too bad. And so here I'll take some sapphire and a little bit of that. So I'll grab some of that color. See, that'll be pretty. Look at that. See, that's a pretty little mark. Maybe a bit lighter right here. Boom. And just push a bit. See, that's a real pretty here. Little touch of that, those colors right in there, see? Boom, just like that. I like to see that. Maybe just a touch more sapphire right in there. Just a pretty little mark. You can go back and reset some warms in or something if you take out too much, you know. But here's a pretty little area here that could have a bit of that, And I try to do it really casual. Which isn't, you know, you see me do this, and it isn't easy. And part of it is this, guys, and I'll be very honest with you. Part is this. I have nothing now to look at. So I'm painting this thing, and everything that I do looks correct, okay? Now, when you go to paint it, you're going to be in a copy mode trying to emulate some of the stuff that I'm doing here, and it may look awkward. So when you come, you know, really, this is what I suggest to everyone when they go to paint blossoms, and a lot of my advanced students. Watch the video through at this part, then put it away. Don't follow me and paint your flowers, but use what I'm saying. Go through the color progressions. You know, make that gray from the burnt sienna and the blues, and then start your lights and warm your lights with some yellows, and then come back and hit it with some violets. And if you're not looking at mine, you're not copying, your blossoms will become a lot more casual. But watch the video all the way through, and you can paint right along with me and the bird. But when we come to these blossoms that we want more casual, watch it so you understand the color progressions, put it away, and go paint yours. And it'll go a lot better. It really will. And that's hard to do, though. That's hard to do because you want to make something that's like mine. And I understand that. Because I do the same thing when I'm studying other artists. You know, if I'm looking at someone and wanting to paint a wave line or something like that, boy, I want it to be just like theirs. And yeah, I understand that. Let's put just little marks of some yellows. Maybe some yellows with some lights. Maybe that's just like another casual little flower that's in there. I kind of like that. There. And boom, just little colors, little touches of colors. That's kind of pretty. Let's go more green. Let's go more pine green here. I'm going to add just a little burnt sienna, extender, and some yellow here. Not to do anything but to just move the color. I'm not painting wet into wet. And I just want to put some greens, some other greens, some different greens, a little brighter, a little more lively into the painting here. Some other greens, maybe a little bit of that violet sneaks in there, tones it down a bit here. We get a bit of the, colors coming out. Boom, like that, just a little boom. And problem is you say, oh wow, I really like that leaf, and if you try to copy it, slow down and try to copy everything I just did, you can't do it. I can't do it. I can't repeat it again because I'm painting too fast. I can copy that, but I can't copy the casual part of some of this stuff sometimes. It's just, way too much. Okay, so I've got this boom boom right there like that, and I don't like that. And so I'm going to take some of my original blue sapphire grays, and I'm going to put a softer little one right down here to break that look. Some of that right out here to break that look. Maybe a bit more warmer with some yellow right up onto the front of this. So I just get rid of that, you can see how thick that paint is. So I get rid of that boom boom look there by adding one more, like right here. Let's put a bit of that violet into that, bit of that sienna and yellow, just as maybe a center right in there, and let it be just really soft. But what I'm looking for is not to paint a flower, because I don't want that much detail that far down there. I just want color here. I just want some of these colors and stuff there into that flower, and I don't want it to be detailed here. A little bit of yellows, if I can get it to come off the brush there. Maybe a bit of the light, just boom, right through like that. See, I even like that little bit of brighter yellow right there. It makes it work here. And I can push a touch more light into some of this to help take away from that. Just a touch more. Little blossoms, maybe a bit more light right here. There, like that. So all little things I looked for. Colors vary, edges. Those are all things that are controlling exactly, following the rules. Those are what are controlling me right now, is my decisions of to put a stroke someplace or not. Those are so important. The interests and stuff like that that I get to it. So there, that's much better. I like that. And there's a little more movement there. Pretty soon we'll fill up the whole board. Fill up the whole board, costs more. Okay, so they got it. So a little bit more detail, a little bit more paint, pushing it around on the body of the bird. Very fast little blossoms that we did on here, and it's a lot of fun. A little different than I did on those. We still have to do that painterly one there. That one, I just absolutely love that one. And we got a long ways to go. A lot of different birds. Some of you are writing down some great birds that you want to see. And yes, and I'm going to do those, and I have some really nice robins and other garden birds that I really want to do as well. There's a lot, so I'm going to have to narrow it down. Now, one last thing is, do you want to come back? Take your brush that we had here and back paint. Always, this will be the last thing you decide to do. Do you want to take a little violet and light here? Of our colors here, the blue. That sapphire blue, and or whatever blue you're using. Do you want to come back and back paint any of this? Make sure if you're back painting, it's slightly lighter than what you're showing. And you can do that back painting technique that we talked about in the bluebird, right? And it's something that I do a lot with my birds, back paint around. But that's up to you. Here, do you want to back paint and streak down through and pop the head of this bird out? And which if you do it too much, then you might have to. I use the brush and I just kind of tap it around like that to get some of that nice color in there. But if you do it too much, you'll lose that nice little feathering edge on her, and you may have to come back and just hit a little more details there. That's up to you. But you might have to hit a bit more And take some water with that, thin it out, and just kind of streak it through a bit. But always keeping an eye on her. Is it helping her, or is it you know, giving too much detail or whatever? You know, that's up to you. That's up to you. And this will dry down, and you might have to do it a couple times because you're painting. I'm not painting super opaque here, so it dries down. If you're doing it to clean up, you might have to do it a couple of times. Especially if you want to lighten something, because I notice if I want to lighten something, I have to do it a couple of times if I use the thin colors like that. That works really well, and then just have a few of these ideas of flowers back there. It just gives a nice little lost little bit back there. Kind of looks fun. Okay, thanks for joining me, guys. Hit like down there, hit like. In the description of our videos is all the links, and still give us another couple days. We're working over on the JansenArtStudio.com, putting all of the challenges together with all the links for everything that I use, so you can go read about it and all that kind of stuff, and with the reference photos and other kinds of things, so you can have lots of resources for you. Okay, so that'll be over on JansenArtStudio.com. Those of you that are on Jansen online or in our online classes, you can look for them there over on our website, and you'll find everything in there, photos and stuff. But Jessica builds that. My daughter builds that. I used to do all that building, but now I just paint. And so she does all of that. So all I have to do is paint, which is great. So that's my job. I paint. And she does all of that. So she's been very, very busy out with lots of orders and doing all other kinds of stuff back out in Pennsylvania. She's out running the business out in Pennsylvania. So give her a couple of days, and then we'll get that up for her and get it built. And if she doesn't get it built by the next one, I'll give all of you her email address that you can write her and say, where is it? Okay? All right. Thanks a lot, guys, for your support. Please hit like. Please hit the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and help us, please, by promoting it for us. Would you do that? Share it with your friends and say, hey, go subscribe to this guy. He's really good. Okay? Something like that, all right? Thanks a lot, guys. I'll see you on the next one. It'll be up in a couple days. Give it a couple days. We'll do another one, all right? Okay. See you later.